I thought I knew heartbreak when I found out he married someone else behind my back. But honey, when he discovered what I'd been hiding all along, his whole world came crashing down. Some secrets are worth more than gold. And mine, it made his betrayal look like child's play. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted, this story will shock you. Make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell because you won't believe how this ends. Trust me, you'll want to hear every single detail. My name is Tasha, and let me tell you about the day my entire world flipped upside down, then right side up again in the most unexpected way. 3 years ago, I thought I had found my forever person. His name was Michael, and he was everything I thought I wanted in a man. Successful businessman, charming smile, knew how to make me laugh until my stomach hurt. We had been together for 3 beautiful years, and I was convinced this was it for me. We used to spend Sunday mornings in bed talking about our future. He'd trace patterns on my back while we planned our dream wedding, discussed names for our future kids, and looked at houses online. I remember one particular morning when he showed me this beautiful colonial house with a wraparound porch, and he said, "This is where we're going to grow old together, baby." I believed every single word that came out of his mouth. But you know what they say about things that seemed too good to be true. Looking back now, there were signs, red flags waving right in my face that I chose to ignore because I was so in love. I couldn't see straight. The late nights at the office became more frequent. His phone calls became secretive with him stepping out of the room or lowering his voice when I walked by. Those business trips that seemed to pop up out of nowhere, always to cities I'd never heard him mention before. When I'd ask about his day, his story started getting shorter, more vague. Just work stuff, baby. Nothing you'd find interesting. But the Michael I fell in love with used to tell me everything. Every funny story from his office, every frustrating client meeting, every small victory. Suddenly, his life became this closed book, and I was no longer invited to read the pages. I started feeling crazy, questioning my own intuition. Was I being paranoid? Was I one of those girlfriends who couldn't trust their man? My friends would tell me I was overthinking that successful men just had demanding careers. So, I pushed down that uncomfortable feeling in my stomach and chose to trust the man I loved. The discovery came in the most unexpected way, as these things usually do. I was scrolling through Instagram on a random Tuesday evening, just mindlessly looking at posts, when I saw a picture that made my blood freeze. It was posted by Christina, a mutual friend from college who I barely kept in touch with. The caption read, "Beautiful wedding yesterday. So happy for the lovely couple." And there he was, my Michael, my man who I had just talked to that morning about what we wanted for dinner, standing at an altar in a black tuxedo, kissing a woman in a white wedding dress, a woman who definitely was not me. I stared at that phone screen for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. My hands started shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. I kept refreshing the page, thinking maybe it was some kind of mistake, some weird glitch, maybe someone who just looked like Michael. But no, it was him. Those were his hands I knew so well, holding another woman's waist. That was his smile I had kissed 1,000 times, beaming at someone else on what was supposed to be the happiest day of their life. The woman in the dress was beautiful. I'll give her that. Tall, elegant, with perfectly styled hair and a smile that looked like it belonged in a magazine. She looked like the kind of woman who had never had a hair out of place in her entire life. Everything about the photo screamed expensive, from the flowers to the venue to the dress that probably cost more than my car. I screenshot everything before my shaking fingers accidentally refreshed and lost it forever. Then I did what any woman in my situation would do. I went full detective mode. I started going through Christina's other posts looking for more clues, more evidence of this betrayal that was slowly destroying me from the inside out. That's when I found the engagement photos posted 3 months ago. 3 months ago, when Michael was supposedly on a business trip to Chicago. There he was, down on one knee, proposing to this woman in what looked like a garden full of roses. The caption from Christina read, "Jennifer said, 'Yes, can't wait for the wedding.'" Jennifer. Her name was Jennifer. I called him immediately, my heart pounding so hard, I could hear it in my ears. When he answered, his voice was casual, normal, like he hadn't just shattered my entire world. "Hey, baby, what's up?" "I'm just getting ready for bed, Michael," I said, and my voice came out shakier than I wanted it to. "We need to talk." There was a pause, a long pause that told me everything I needed to know about "What about your wife, Jennifer?" The silence that followed was deafening. I could hear him breathing, could practically hear his mind racing, trying to figure out how I found out, what excuse he could possibly give me. When he finally spoke, his voice was different. "Colder, Tasha. I can explain." "Explain what?" "How you've been living a double life for God knows how long. How you proposed to another woman while you were supposed to be building a future with me." "Explain that." What came next was the most pathetic, insulting explanation I had ever heard in my life. He told me it was complicated, that Jennifer was someone his family had chosen for him, that it was more of a business arrangement than a real marriage. He said he loved me, that I was the one he really wanted to be with, but his family's expectations and his career made this marriage necessary. "Necessary," I repeated, my voice getting louder. "Your marriage to another woman was necessary. And what about me, Michael? What about the 3 years I gave you? What about all those Sunday mornings when you were planning our fake future?" He tried to convince me that we could still be together, that nothing had to change between us. This man actually had the audacity to suggest I become his side piece while he played happy husband with Jennifer. The disrespect was so overwhelming, I hung up on him. For the next few days, I was a complete mess. I called in sick to work and stayed in bed crying until I had no tears left. I went through every stage of grief you can imagine. Denial, thinking maybe I had misunderstood something. Anger, wanting to burn down his whole world. Bargaining, wondering if there was some way to fix this, to make him choose me. Depression, feeling like I would never be enough for anyone. But then something shifted. The anger started to fuel something else, something stronger. I decided I needed to know everything. Who was this Jennifer? How long had this been going on? What else had he been lying about? Jennifer turned out to be a successful lawyer from a prominent family. Her father owned a chain of hotels. Her mother was on the board of several charities. She went to private schools her whole life, graduated from Harvard, spoke 3 languages. On paper, she was perfect. She was the kind of woman mothers dream their sons will marry. The kind who looks good at business dinners and charity galas. As I dug deeper into Michael's life, things started making more sense in the worst possible way. Those business trips weren't for his job. They were wedding planning trips. All those late nights at the office were actually dates with Jennifer. The secretive phone calls were him coordinating his double life, making sure his 2 worlds never collided. I found out from mutual friends who finally felt comfortable telling me the truth that people had known about Jennifer for months. They had seen them together at restaurants, at social events, but nobody wanted to be the messenger who got shot. Some of them thought I already knew and was okay with it. Others were too uncomfortable to get involved. The betrayal wasn't just from Michael. It was from a whole community of people who watched me live a lie and said nothing. But here's where the story gets interesting. Because while I was drowning in this betrayal, life had its own plans for me. 2 weeks after I found out about the wedding, I got a phone call that changed everything. It was from a lawyer named Mr. Thompson, and he was calling about my grandmother's estate. Now, my grandmother had passed away 2 years earlier, and I thought everything had been settled. She had lived modestly her whole life in the same small house she'd bought in the 1960s. I knew she had left me some things, but I figured it was just sentimental items and maybe a small savings account. Mr. Thompson asked me to come to his office because there were some documents I needed to sign and some things we needed to discuss about my inheritance. I almost didn't go because I was still in my heartbreak phase, barely getting dressed or leaving the house. But something told me I should hear what he had to say. When I walked into that law office, I was not prepared for what I was about to learn. My grandmother, the woman who raised me after my parents died, the woman who worked as a seamstress and always clipped coupons and shopped sales, had been sitting on a fortune. Mr. Thompson spread out papers across his desk and started explaining. My grandmother had inherited a piece of property from her father back in the 1950s. At the time, it was just farmland outside the city, not worth much. But as the city grew and expanded, that farmland became prime real estate. My grandmother, being the smart woman she was, never sold it. Instead, she leased it to developers and businesses, collecting rent for decades. But that wasn't all. With the money from those leases, she had been investing in stocks, bonds, and more real estate. She was like a secret financial genius, building wealth quietly while living her simple life. By the time she passed away, her portfolio was worth more money than I could have ever imagined. The catch was that according to her will, I couldn't access the inheritance until I turned 30. She wanted to make sure I was mature enough to handle that kind of responsibility. My 30th birthday was next month. As Mr. Thompson explained the numbers, I felt like I was in a dream. We were talking about millions of dollars, properties, investments, trust funds for future children I hadn't even had yet. My grandmother had set me up for life, and I had no idea. When I left that lawyer's office, I was walking in a daze. Here I was mourning the loss of a man who had betrayed me, feeling like my life was over. And it turned out I was about to become independently wealthy. The irony was not lost on me. But here's the thing that really got me. As word started to spread about my inheritance, guess who came crawling back? Michael started calling again, but this time his tone was different. Suddenly, he was talking about how he had made a mistake. How he realized I was the love of his life. How he wanted to work things out. The man who had married another woman for her family's money and connections was now trying to get back with me because I had money. The manipulation was so transparent, it was almost laughable. He started showing up at my apartment, bringing flowers, and talking about how we could start over. He told me his marriage to Jennifer was just a piece of paper, that it didn't mean anything. He said he was willing to leave her if I would take him back. Jennifer, meanwhile, was not having it. I heard through mutual friends that she was furious about Michael's sudden change of heart. Their perfect marriage was already showing cracks, and they hadn't even been married for a month. But I was different now. The heartbreak had changed me, made me stronger. The inheritance had given me options I never thought I'd have. For the first time in my life, I didn't need anyone. I could take care of myself, build the life I wanted, make my own choices without worrying about money or security. When Michael showed up at my door for the final time, I was ready for him. He came with his usual charm, that smile that used to make melt, talking about how we were meant to be together, how he would do anything to fix what he had broken. I looked at this man who I used to love with everything in me, and I felt nothing but pity. "Michael," I said, "do you want to know a secret?" He nodded eagerly, probably thinking I was about to forgive him. Take him back. Rescue him from the mess he had made of his life. I knew about the inheritance before you left me. His face went completely blank. What? I found out about my grandmother's money a week before I discovered your wedding photos. I was waiting to tell you, wanted to surprise you with the news. But then I saw you kissing your wife and I realized something important. He was staring at me like I was speaking a foreign language. I realized that if you truly loved me, money wouldn't matter. If you were really committed to building a life with me, you wouldn't have married someone else for financial security. So I decided to stay quiet and see what you would do. Tasha, you failed the test, Michael. You showed me exactly who you are when you think nobody's watching. You're the kind of man who will betray the woman he claims to love for money and status. And now that you know I have both, you want me back. I could see him trying to process this, trying to find words that would fix this situation, but there were no words. Here's what's going to happen, I continued. I'm going to use my inheritance to build the life I deserve. I'm going to start the business I've always dreamed of. Travel to places I've always wanted to see and find someone who loves me for me, not for what I can give them. And you're going to go back to your wife and figure out how to make your marriage work because I'm done being your backup plan. 6 months later, my life looks completely different. I used part of my inheritance to start a consulting business that's already thriving. I bought myself a beautiful house with that wraparound porch Michael had shown me, except this one is all mine. I've traveled to 3 countries, learned to speak French, and started dating a man who knew me before he knew about my money. Michael, well, let's just say his marriage to Jennifer isn't going as smoothly as their wedding photo suggested. Turns out when you marry someone for the wrong reasons, it's hard to build something real. I heard they're in counseling trying to save a relationship that was never built on love in the first place. The funny thing about betrayal is that sometimes it's exactly what you need to discover your own strength. If Michael had never left me, I might have spent my whole life thinking I needed him to be complete. Instead, his betrayal forced me to stand on my own. And I discovered I was stronger than I ever imagined. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting back at someone who hurt you. Sometimes it's building a life so beautiful, so fulfilling that you forget why you were angry in the first place. Sometimes it's realizing that their betrayal wasn't your loss, it was your liberation. If this story taught you anything, let it be this. Know your worth and never settle for less. What would you have done in Tasha's situation? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you love this story, smash that like button and subscribe for more real-life drama that'll keep you on the edge of your seat. Hit the notification bell so you never miss when I drop these jaw-dropping stories. Trust me, I've got more secrets to spill.